The morning sun painted the fields of New Haven in golden light as Commander Jake Morrison walked along the colony's outer perimeter. The harvest season had brought joy to the 50,000 humans who called this world home, and the sight of children playing between the grain stalks made him smile. 3 years of peace had made this place feel safe, and Jake often forgot they were living on the edge of known space where dangers could hide behind any star. Lieutenant Amy Carter joined him at the observation post where she handed him a cup of coffee and pointed toward the alien transport ship landing near the research center. The blue and silver vessel belonged to their Zephyrian friends, and Jake recognized it as belonging to HFY, the diplomat who had become like family to many colonists. The Zephyrians had shared their medical technology and helped New Haven become one of the most advanced human settlements in the Outer Rim. Dr. Lisa Thompson was probably waiting eagerly for HFY's arrival, since they had been working together on breakthrough research that could change medicine forever. Lisa had told Jake just yesterday that they were close to solving cellular regeneration, which would help humans heal from injuries that currently meant death or permanent disability. The partnership between humans and Zephyrians seemed to prove that different species could work together for the good of everyone. Captain Ben Rodriguez approached them with his usual serious expression, but today something seemed different in his eyes. Ben had been feeling uneasy for weeks, though he could never explain why his instincts were telling him to be careful. Jake trusted Ben's judgment since the man had kept them all alive during their early days on New Haven, when hostile wildlife and harsh weather had threatened the colony's survival. The three officers watched as more Zephyrian ships began appearing in the morning sky, and Jake felt the first stirring of concern in his chest. HFY usually traveled alone or with a small escort, but today at least 12 ships were descending toward New Haven's landing platforms. Amy counted them through her binoculars, and her face grew pale as she realized these were not transport vessels but military craft designed for war. Jake activated his communicator to contact the colony's defense center, but found only static where clear signals should have been. Ben immediately drew his weapon and started running toward the nearest alarm system, while Amy began trying to reach other outposts around the colony's borders. The morning that had started with such peace was suddenly filled with the terrible understanding that something was very wrong. The Zephyrian ships landed in perfect formation around New Haven's main settlement, and armed soldiers began pouring out before the engines had even cooled. Jake watched in horror as the aliens he had welcomed as friends started setting up weapon positions aimed directly at the colony's residential areas, where families were probably still eating breakfast and getting ready for another normal day. HFY himself emerged from the largest ship wearing battle armor instead of the simple robes he usually preferred, and his face showed no trace of the warmth Jake had grown accustomed to seeing. The diplomat who had shared meals with human families and played games with their children now looked at New Haven with cold calculation, as if he were seeing it for the first time. Dr. Lisa Thompson came running from the research center with tears streaming down her face as she called out to HFY, asking him what was happening and why armed soldiers were surrounding the medical facility where they had worked together for months. HFY looked at her with something that might have been regret before he spoke words that would change everything forever. The Zephyrian High Council had declared humanity a threat to galactic stability due to their rapid expansion and dangerous adaptability, and New Haven had been chosen to serve as an example of what happened to species that grew too quickly and developed too much power. Lisa's medical research had been the final proof that humans could not be allowed to continue their current path of development. Jake felt his world collapse as HFY explained that the friendship and cooperation had all been lies designed to study human capabilities and find their weaknesses. The Zephyrians had been reporting every breakthrough and every advance back to their government while pretending to care about human welfare and progress. The attack began without warning, as energy weapons started firing from the orbiting ships and the ground forces opened fire on anyone trying to escape. Jake managed to activate one emergency beacon before the communications array exploded in flames, but he knew help was days away at best, and New Haven would be nothing but ashes long before any rescue ships could arrive. Ben Rodriguez died fighting to protect the evacuation shuttles, and his last act was to get 3 ships loaded with children away from the landing platforms before the Zephyrians could stop them. Amy Carter fell while trying to organize the colony's few weapons into some kind of defense, and Jake held her hand as she whispered that they should have seen this coming. Dr. Lisa Thompson watched in horror as Kethval personally executed the human researchers who had trusted him with their lives and their work, while he looked into their eyes and told them their deaths were necessary for galactic peace. The betrayal was complete and absolute, leaving no doubt that the friendship had been nothing but a carefully planned deception. By nightfall, New Haven burned under alien weapons, and the screams of 50,000 humans echoed across the fields, where children had played that morning. Jake Morrison crawled through the wreckage trying to save anyone he could, while knowing that this day would never be forgotten or forgiven. 3 weeks after the massacre, Jake Morrison sat in a makeshift shelter deep in New Haven's wilderness, surrounded by the faces of the few who had survived the slaughter. Dr. Lisa Thompson worked quietly on a damaged transmitter using parts salvaged from the wreckage while her hands shook from memories of watching Kethval murder her research team. The 193 survivors had been living like animals, hiding in caves and eating whatever they could find, while trying to stay alive long enough to tell the galaxy what had happened to their home. The transmitter finally crackled to life, and Jake felt his heart pound as he realized they could reach the other human worlds with their story. Lisa had managed to save recordings from the research center's security systems, showing Kethval's betrayal and the systematic execution of civilians who had welcomed the Zephyrians as friends. The footage was clear enough to show the faces of the dead in the cold calculation in alien eyes as they murdered children and elderly colonists without mercy. Jake spoke directly into the camera, knowing his words would reach Earth and every human settlement in known space. He told them about the morning when trusted friends had revealed themselves as enemies, and how the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had decided humanity needed to be destroyed before they became too powerful. The message included names and faces of every person who had died, and Lisa's research data proving that the medical breakthrough had been used as an excuse for genocide. On Earth, President Helen Davis received the transmission during an emergency session of the Terran Council, and the images from New Haven left the room in stunned silence. Admiral Carl Peterson stood before the assembled leaders with tears in his eyes as he explained that humanity faced a choice between submission and extinction. The Zephyrian Empire controlled over 40 star systems and possessed technology that made human weapons look like children's toys. Within hours of receiving Jake's message, the other human colonies began reporting visits from alien diplomats carrying the same ultimatum. The Altarian Republic, which had been humanity's closest ally, announced they were severing all ties with human worlds to protect themselves from Zephyrian anger. Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Collective delivered a formal statement explaining that humanity must accept protective custody under galactic supervision or face complete annihilation. Intelligence reports revealed the terrible truth about what had really happened at New Haven, as alien communications were intercepted and decoded by human analysts. The massacre had been planned for months as a test to see how humanity would respond to overwhelming force. Every major galactic civilization had agreed that human expansion and technological development represented a threat that needed to be eliminated before it became unstoppable. Dr. Thompson's medical research had been the final trigger, because cellular regeneration technology would give humans significant advantages in longevity and healing that could accelerate their development beyond what other species could match. The breakthrough that should have saved lives across the galaxy had instead been twisted into justification for mass murder and the subjugation of every human world. President Davis found herself facing demands from terrified colony governors, who wanted to surrender immediately rather than face the same fate as New Haven. The Outer Rim settlements were defenseless against Zephyrian warships, and their populations included millions of civilians who had never seen combat. The choice seemed clear between accepting alien rule or watching every human world burn under orbital bombardment. Admiral Peterson received direct orders to stand down the human defense fleet and prepare for peaceful integration under galactic oversight, but something in the old soldier's eyes suggested he had different plans. The Admiral had served humanity for 30 years and watched the fleet grow from a handful of patrol ships into a force capable of defending human space against pirates and hostile aliens. The idea of surrendering without a fight went against everything he believed about duty and honor. Secret meetings began taking place in secure facilities across human space as military leaders and civilian officials tried to find options beyond submission or death. The survivors from New Haven were brought to Earth where their testimony was recorded and shown to every human leader who still believed diplomacy might save them. Jake Morrison spoke to packed auditoriums describing the moment when Kethval had looked him in the eyes and explained why his people deserved to die. Intelligence officer Nicole Brooks presented classified data about galactic military capabilities and trade routes that revealed potential weaknesses in what seemed like an unbeatable enemy. The alien civilizations had grown complacent after centuries of peace, and their confidence in human weakness might be their greatest vulnerability. Nicole's analysis suggested that surprise attacks against key targets could cripple entire star systems if executed with precision and timing. Engineer Ryan Cooper proposed converting civilian vessels into weapons platforms using technology captured from alien traders over the years. Mining ships could carry planet-cracking weapons while transport craft could be fitted with experimental systems based on Zephyrian designs. The plan was desperate and dangerous, but it offered hope where surrender promised only slavery or death. Dr. Lisa Thompson volunteered to weaponize her medical research, creating biological agents specifically designed to affect alien physiology while leaving humans unharmed. Her voice was cold as she described how the same regeneration technology that should have healed the galaxy could be twisted into a weapon that would make every alien species remember the names of New Haven's dead. As the weeks passed, human space seemed to accept its fate with diplomatic messages speaking of cooperation and understanding, while alien observers reported that humanity appeared ready for peaceful integration. Behind the scenes, however, a different kind of preparation was beginning as weapons were manufactured in secret facilities, and every human world began training its population for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The message from New Haven had reached every corner of human space, carrying images of dead children and burning homes that would never be forgotten. Jake Morrison's final words echoed in meeting rooms and military bases across 50 worlds as humanity prepared to show the galaxy what happened when they pushed the wrong species too far. The attack began at exactly midnight Earth time across 47 star systems as humanity revealed what 6 months of preparation had created. Admiral Carl Peterson's fleet emerged from hidden positions with ships that alien sensors could not identify as the converted civilian vessels opened fire with weapons that should not have existed. The first target was the Zephyrian homeworld, where government officials were celebrating the anniversary of New Haven's destruction with festivals and speeches about galactic peace. The planet's defense grid had been designed to stop external invasions, but Ryan Cooper's converted cargo ships had approached through established trade routes, carrying identification codes provided by Nicole Brooks' intelligence network. When the attack began, Zephyrian orbital platforms found themselves facing planet-cracking weapons fired from inside their own defensive perimeter at ranges too close for their systems to intercept. The Zephyrian capital city vanished in the first salvo as experimental human weapons turned the seat of government into a crater visible from orbit. The aliens who had ordered the massacre of New Haven died without understanding what was happening as their world's major population centers disappeared under concentrated bombardment. The orbital bombardment continued for 6 hours, matching exactly the time it had taken to destroy the human colony. But the real weapon was not the military assault, but Dr. Lisa Thompson's biological agent deployed simultaneously across every major alien world through infiltrated trade networks and diplomatic pouches. The remembrance virus had been introduced into water supplies and air systems weeks earlier, where it waited dormant until activation signals triggered its release. Within hours of the attacks beginning, alien populations across the galaxy began experiencing the final moments of every human who had died at New Haven. Jake Morrison led ground forces on the Zephyrian capital world, hunting specifically for Kethval, who had survived the initial bombardment in a deep bunker beneath the diplomatic quarter. The confrontation was personal, as Jake found the alien who had betrayed his trust and murdered his people hiding among the ruins of the civilization he had helped destroy. Kethval begged for mercy, speaking of friendship and cooperation, but Jake's response was to force the alien to watch recordings of New Haven's children dying before ending his life with the same cold calculation the Zephyrians had shown. General Patricia Hayes coordinated strikes against military installations across the galaxy, as human forces demonstrated that they had learned from their enemies' tactics. Alien bases that had seemed impregnable fell to converted mining ships carrying experimental weapons, while human fighters used captured technology to turn enemy defenses against themselves. The attacks were swift and brutal, leaving no time for coordinated responses or evacuation procedures. The Centauri Collective attempted to mobilize their fleet, but found their ships crippled by sabotage as Nicole Brooks's agents revealed themselves across the galaxy. Human operatives who had posed as traitors and diplomats for months suddenly became saboteurs, destroying critical systems and assassinating key military leaders. The alien civilizations discovered that their confidence in human submission had allowed enemies to penetrate every level of their societies. Engineer Ryan Cooper's converted fleet targeted infrastructure with precision strikes that left alien civilizations capable of survival but unable to threaten human worlds. Faster-than-light communication networks were destroyed, while shipyards and manufacturing centers burned under focused bombardment. Within 72 hours, 6 major alien species lost their capacity for interstellar travel as their technological civilization collapsed around them. Dr. Thompson's virus spread through alien populations faster than any natural disease as the biological agent used their own distribution networks against them. The aliens found themselves trapped in endless loops of human memory, experiencing the terror of New Haven's victims, while their bodies weakened and their minds broke under the psychological assault. Medical facilities across the galaxy filled with patients suffering from symptoms no alien doctor could treat or understand. Nicole Brooks broadcast humanity's message to every inhabited world in the galaxy, using alien communication systems to ensure the transmission could not be blocked or ignored. The message showed the faces of New Haven's children and the burning colony, while promising that this was not conquest, but justice. Any species that threatened human civilians would face complete annihilation, as humanity had demonstrated its willingness to destroy entire civilizations in response to betrayal. The galactic response was chaos, as alien fleets scrambled to defend homeworlds that were already under attack, while their populations succumbed to a virus that turned their own memories into weapons. The Altarian Republic attempted to negotiate but received only silence as human forces continued their systematic destruction of alien military capabilities. Emergency sessions of galactic councils achieved nothing as communication networks failed and government centers burned. Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of the Zephyrian capital holding Kethval's lifeless body, while human ships continued their bombardment of military targets. The alien who had spoken of friendship while planning genocide had learned too late that humanity possessed a capacity for vengeance that matched their former trust. The betrayal at New Haven had created something the galaxy had never encountered before, and the aliens were discovering that some wounds could never heal. Admiral Peterson received reports from across human space, confirming that the offensive had exceeded all expectations, as alien civilizations collapsed faster than anyone had predicted. The converted civilian fleet had proven devastatingly effective, while the biological weapons spread through populations that had no defense against human creativity turned to destruction. The galaxy that had dismissed humanity as weak was learning that peaceful species could become the most dangerous enemies when pushed beyond their limits. The remembrance virus continued its work, as alien survivors found themselves unable to forget the faces and final moments of New Haven's dead. The biological agent had been designed to ensure that every alien generation would carry the memory of human suffering in their genes, making it impossible for future civilizations to forget what happened when they chose genocide as a political solution. Within 1 week, the galactic balance of power had shifted completely as human forces demonstrated that advanced technology meant nothing against enemies willing to sacrifice everything for revenge. The species that had ordered New Haven's destruction learned that humanity did not forgive or forget, and that betrayal carried consequences beyond anything they had imagined possible. 6 months had passed since New Haven burned, and to outside observers, humanity seemed to have accepted its place under galactic supervision. Human representatives attended diplomatic meetings speaking softly about cooperation and peaceful integration, while alien monitors reported that the species appeared broken by the demonstration of superior force. The Zephyrian High Council congratulated themselves on solving the human problem, without needing to destroy every human world, and other galactic civilizations praised the elegant solution to a dangerous situation. General Patricia Hayes moved through the underground facility beneath Chicago, where thousands of humans worked around the clock manufacturing weapons that did not officially exist. Every major human world had similar installations hidden beneath cities and inside mountain ranges, where civilians who had never held weapons learned to build instruments of war. Children as young as 12 studied tactical planning, while elderly, citizens who had lived through peaceful decades, now assembled explosive devices with steady hands and determined faces. The transformation was complete and systematic, as humanity shed its peaceful nature like a skin that no longer fit. Mining colonies became weapons factories, while agricultural worlds converted their food production facilities into chemical weapons plants. Research stations that had once studied stars and planets now focused entirely on developing new ways to kill alien species efficiently and without mercy. Dr. Lisa Thompson worked in a secret laboratory built inside New Haven's ruins, where she had returned despite the pain of seeing her former home reduced to ashes and bones. Her cellular regeneration research had taken a darker path, as she developed biological agents tailored specifically to alien physiology, using tissue samples collected from diplomatic visits over the years. The Remembrance virus was her masterpiece, designed to force alien minds to experience the final moments of every human who had died at New Haven, until madness took them completely. Engineer Ryan Cooper supervised the conversion of civilian vessels into weapons platforms at hidden shipyards throughout the asteroid belt. Cargo haulers became carriers for planet-cracking bombs, while passenger ships were fitted with experimental energy weapons based on captured Zephyrian technology. The work was dangerous, and several facilities were lost to accidents. But the converted fleet grew larger each week, as more volunteers joined the project, knowing they might not survive to see the results. Intelligence officer Nicole Brooks had infiltrated alien communication networks and trade systems, gathering detailed information about military capabilities and population centers across 47 star systems. Her network of human agents posed as traders and diplomats, while mapping alien infrastructure and identifying key targets for the coming offensive. The aliens' confidence in human submission had made them careless about security, allowing Nicole's people to penetrate systems that should have been impregnable. Jake Morrison had become something harder than the colony commander he once was, as he trained human fighters in facilities hidden across the Outer Rim worlds. The survivors from New Haven served as instructors, teaching others how to turn human adaptability and creativity into weapons that aliens could not predict or counter. The training was brutal and unforgiving because mercy was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. Admiral Carl Peterson maintained the fiction that the human defense fleet was preparing for integration while secretly moving ships to classified positions throughout human space. His officers understood that they were not training for defense but for a first strike that would cripple enemy capabilities before the aliens realized what was happening. The Admiral had studied every battle in human history, looking for lessons about how smaller forces could defeat larger ones through surprise and overwhelming violence. Every human world contributed to the preparation, as entire populations united by grief and determination worked toward a single goal. Mars produced weapons components while Europa manufactured biological agents, and Titan served as a testing ground for new technologies. The outer colonies provided volunteers for suicide missions, while inner worlds offered their industrial capacity for the war effort. Dr. Thompson's virus was tested on alien tissue samples with results that exceeded even her darkest expectations. The biological agent would spread through alien populations within days, forcing them to relive the terror and pain experienced by New Haven's victims while their own immune systems turned against them. The virus was designed to be hereditary, ensuring that future generations of aliens would carry the memories of human suffering in their genes. Ryan Cooper's converted ships began moving to attack positions disguised as routine cargo runs and maintenance operations. The alien monitoring system saw normal civilian traffic while human crews prepared weapons that could crack planets and turn entire star systems into graveyards. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy worlds, but more importantly, they carried the determination to use it without hesitation. Nicole Brooks confirmed that the alien civilizations remained confident in their victory with military forces, spread thin across their territories and defense systems designed for external threats, rather than coordinated attacks from within. The Zephyrian Empire had reduced its fleet strength, believing humanity was no longer a threat, while other species had begun squabbling among themselves about how to divide human territory. Training facilities across human space produced fighters who understood that they were not soldiers in a traditional war but instruments of justice, carrying out a sentence pronounced by alien arrogance. The human forces were smaller than their enemies, but they possessed advantages that the galaxy had never encountered, including the willingness to sacrifice everything for revenge and the creativity to turn any tool into a weapon. Jake Morrison addressed groups of volunteers knowing that many would not survive the coming offensive, but seeing in their eyes the same cold determination that had kept him alive in New Haven's ruins. These humans understood that they were not fighting for conquest or territory, but for the right to exist without permission from species that had proven themselves willing to commit genocide for political convenience. As the preparation phase neared completion, humanity presented a face of resigned acceptance to the galaxy, while secretly moving the pieces into position for a response that would reshape the balance of power forever. The aliens who had ordered New Haven's destruction believed they had broken humanity's spirit when in reality, they had only forged it into something harder and more dangerous than anything the galaxy had seen before. The day of reckoning was approaching, and 47 alien star systems continued their normal routines, unaware that humanity had spent 6 months preparing to teach the galaxy a lesson about what happened when they chose the wrong species to betray. 1 year after the reckoning, the galaxy had learned to fear the sound of human voices and the sight of ships bearing Earth's insignia. Jake Morrison stood as planetary governor of the rebuilt New Haven, where every building had been reconstructed, exactly as it was before the massacre, but now served as both monument and warning to the 43 alien civilizations that existed under human oversight. The colony's main square contained holographic displays showing the faces and stories of every victim, while alien delegations were required to visit and pay respects before any diplomatic contact with humanity could begin. Dr. Lisa Thompson had become the galaxy's most feared figure, as her medical research now served only human colonies, while her biological weapons ensured that no alien species could threaten humanity without facing complete extinction. She continued her work from a laboratory built on the exact site where Kethaval had murdered her research team, and every breakthrough in human medicine was matched by corresponding developments in alien-specific warfare. The remembrance virus had become hereditary in alien populations, ensuring that future generations would carry the memory of New Haven's dead in their genetic code. President Helen Davis addressed the United Nations of Earth in a speech broadcast across the galaxy, explaining humanity's new doctrine to species that had no choice but to listen. Humans would trade and cooperate and even show mercy, but would never again tolerate threats to human civilians. The massacre of New Haven would be remembered for 1,000 generations, and any species that forgot this lesson would join the Zephyrians in extinction. The message was clear and absolute, leaving no room for misunderstanding or negotiation. Admiral Carl Peterson's fleet now patrolled the galaxy openly with alien vessels required to submit to inspection and provide tribute before entering human-controlled space. The converted civilian ships that had destroyed alien homeworlds continued their patrols as reminders of what happened when species mistook human peaceful nature for weakness. Alien military forces existed only with human permission, and any attempt to rebuild without authorization resulted in immediate and devastating retaliation. General Patricia Hayes oversaw the occupation forces that maintained order on alien worlds, where populations lived with constant reminders of their defeat. Human governors ruled former alien capitals, while resistance movements were crushed with efficiency that demonstrated humanity's complete mastery of warfare. The aliens who had dismissed humans as primitive discovered that adaptability and creativity made for devastating conquerors when combined with unlimited determination for revenge. Intelligence officer Nicole Brooks had created a network spanning every inhabited system, ensuring that human interests were protected by agents who understood that betrayal meant death for entire species. Her operatives monitored alien communications, and activities while maintaining the infrastructure that kept former enemies dependent on human technology and resources. The galaxy's trade routes now served human expansion, while alien civilizations struggled to maintain basic necessities. Engineer Ryan Cooper continued developing new technologies that kept humanity ahead of any potential threat, while his converted fleet served as the backbone of human military supremacy. The ships that had once carried cargo and passengers now carried weapons capable of sterilizing worlds, and the reminder of their civilian origins made them even more terrifying to aliens who understood how completely they had misjudged human capabilities. The rebuilt New Haven served as the capital of humanity's galactic empire, where alien ambassadors came to beg for concessions and plead for reduced tributes. Jake Morrison received these delegations with the same cold politeness that Kethaval had once shown while planning genocide, and his responses carried the implicit threat that mercy was a privilege that could be revoked at any time. The alien diplomats who visited the memorial often broke down weeping as they experienced fragments of the remembrance virus that Dr. Thompson had woven into the very air of the colony. Human colonies expanded aggressively throughout the galaxy, with alien protests ignored or met with reminders of what happened to those who opposed humanity's will. The outer rim territories that had once been dangerous frontiers became safe havens, protected by fleets that alien species could not match or challenge. New settlements bore names honoring New Haven's dead, while human families raised children who would never know the fear that had once driven their parents to desperate measures. The Centauri Collective's former ambassador Veltar now served as a museum guide on Earth, where alien visitors learned about human history and the consequences of underestimating species that appeared peaceful. His presentations always ended with recordings from New Haven showing alien audiences exactly what their governments had ordered and why humanity's response had been both necessary and proportionate. The aliens who watched these presentations left understanding that they lived at human sufferance and that privilege could be withdrawn without warning. Dr. Thompson's research facilities across human space continued developing new medical technologies that extended human lifespans and enhanced physical capabilities, while corresponding biological weapons ensured that alien populations remained vulnerable to human retaliation. The same regeneration technology that should have benefited the entire galaxy now served only humanity, while potential enemies faced the constant threat of designer plagues that could target specific species without affecting humans. The Zephyrian survivors lived in designated areas under constant supervision, where they served as living reminders of what happened to species that betrayed human trust. Kethaval's successor Mordith visited the New Haven Memorial regularly, as required by the terms of his people's surrender, and his whispered promises that future generations would never forget carried both respect and terror. The Zephyrians, who had once controlled 40 star systems, now existed as a subject, people whose fate served as an example to others. President Davis concluded her address by reminding the galaxy that humanity had learned important lessons from the day their innocents died at New Haven. Survival in a hostile universe required not just strength, but the willingness to use it, absolutely when threatened, and the ability to make examples that would prevent future challenges. The galaxy had learned something equally important about what happened when peaceful species were pushed beyond their limits and discovered that some wounds could never heal. In the final scene, human children played in New Haven's rebuilt streets, while alien tourists watched in respectful silence, knowing that these laughing youngsters represented the future masters of galactic civilization. The peace that existed was built on the understanding that humanity's mercy came with conditions written in the blood of innocent dead and enforced by weapons that could turn worlds to ash. The galaxy had learned that day that some species, when pushed to the brink, did not just push back but reshape the entire universe around their pain.